A while back, I did an If I Were Sakurai roster, which is basically a roster that looks at the entire series from the start and just puts the same kind of theorizing on it and builds up from there. So if I was designing the roster from the very start, things I'd do. And one of the things I had in that roster that was most surprising was I had Suicune as a Pokemon rep for Melee. This might seem really, really strange at first, but if you actually think about it's nothing too out of the ordinary. And we've seen that bipeds, that quadrupeds work, and we've seen Ivysaur and Brawl, so someone on four legs can fight effectively. And we've seen that legendary Pokemon can fight in Smash Bros. Because we've seen Mewtwo. And we've seen Pokemon that are really big can be scaled down, like Charizard. So I don't think there's anything preventing Suicune from actually being a proper fighter in terms of physics and all that. He could still grab ledges and pick up items the same way Pikachu can with his mouth and stuff. So here is just a moveset looking into the types of attacks I would give Suicune. Now, since I'm taking this off this situation that it's Suicune for Melee and not Suicune for Super Smash Bros. 4, I'm only going to be using Pokemon attacks that were actually invented at the time. So that's only Generation 1 and 2 attacks, and only Generation 1 and 2 attacks that he can actually learn. So let's get started then. He would use a combination of water and ice attacks in his standard A moves. He can learn a lot of ice attacks in game, and ice climbers are the only real other ice type fighters out there. I think the only other ice type attacks outside of items are Giga Bowser's Down Smash. That's the only other ice attack outside of ice climbers and the items. But anyway, that's not the point. He'd use ice attacks and water attacks and some bubble based attacks, as well as just general attacks with his body, and maybe something that would kind of be wind based since he can learn Gust. Onto his B moveset, I'd make a standard B Hydro Pump. This would not be a pushing move like Squirtle. I'm going to be doing a lot of comparisons to Squirtle, since Squirtle's the only water fighter we've seen so far. Instead, it would be an actual general outright attack. It would be a projectile that travels about as far as Shadow Ball, but it has quite a bit of startup lag. It's about as long lagged as Warlock Punch. It has a lot of lag, but deals very heavy damage, and not quite as damage as Warlock Punch or Falcon Punch, but pretty strong for a projectile. Unlike Hydro Pump in the game, though, it's kind of easy to avoid. It's not much special. You kind of look mostly like the Hydro Pump from the original first games, where it's kind of like almost like a nail in appearance, except it'd be like a jet of water going out. It wouldn't be very long or wide though. It wouldn't be a continuous beam. It would just be one jet of water. Onto his side B. I'll make a side B Icy Wind. It would basically act quite a lot like Blizzard from the Ice Climbers, though slightly a bit like Bowser's and Charizard's Fire Breath. It could freeze, but only a very high percentages. Doesn't freeze as easily as Blizzard from the Ice Climbers. Instead, it's more a damaging attack that keeps opponents at range, like Bowser's and Charizard's attack. Now, his up B is Waterfall. It would act completely similar to Squirtle's Waterfall attack in Brawl. It might seem a bit unoriginal, but that would really be the best attack for him, since at that point Waterfall was newly made into a HM, so it's likely that it would have implemented into his moveset as a recovery like that, because it works well as a recovery. The other alternative is a Whirlpool, which is also made a HM at that point. I could see that kind of jetting him into the air, but for, I don't know, a quadruped like that, it just would seem kind of odd, I feel. Now, his down B would be Mirror Coat, actually, because he can learn Mirror Coat in all the games that he appears in, which is kind of cool, and counter moves are pretty cool as well. Melee was when we first started seeing counter moves, and we already had them on the Fire Emblem characters in Peach, so I think having a fourth counter move character wouldn't have been overkill. He would basically just put his head down, and a purple shield would kind of go around his head area where his kind of jewel is. And basically, if he gets attacked in that point, the opponents will get blasted by psychic-based energy, since it is a psychic-based attack. And Melee didn't have final smashes, so I'm not really going to go into any final smashes, but you could basically just pick any strong water or ice type attack and just kind of make some kind of huge attack with it. But I'm not thinking about final smashes. So that's it for now. That's my Suicune moveset. That's it, and tune in next time when I talk about something else.